All right, welcome, you guys. I am so excited for today. This is actually a person I have never met in person, but ironically, we like kind of live by each other. So kind of weird how small the world is. Anyway, I have Kim with me today, and I already just think she's adorable and awesome. And what she's told me a little bit about herself, like she is a woman on a mission, and that just makes my heart so happy. And you guys all know adoption is so near and dear to my heart. And I just have loved doing this because I find so many different walks of life and everybody has a freaking story to share. That's my favorite part about this is everybody has a story and everybody has something to bring. And every time I do one of these interviews, I always learn something new. So I'm so excited to hear from her. And she's just amazing all around. I'll have her talk about herself, what she does, and then I'll also have her talk about her story. So I will go ahead and turn the time over to you.
Okay, awesome. So like she said, my name is Kim Perry. I had to ask her, like, what angle do you want me to take on this? Because I am an adoptive mom, but I'm also an adoption professional. So I work in the adoption world. I work with domestic and infant adoption with a company called Utah Adoption Specialists with 3 other fabulous ladies. And I love doing that. But I'm also an adoptive mom. So that's probably what I'll focus on more is sharing my experiences adopting my own children. So my story, I'll try and be concise a little bit, but my story starts when I have a heart for adoption. Like it's something that's always been something that's important to me. It's always been a part of my life. My mom's youngest sister was adopted as an infant. My grandparents had 8 biological children, and then out of the blue, they got a phone call saying, "Hey, would you adopt this baby girl?" And it was a surprise, and they said yes, and they adopted her, and so she became their 9th child. That doesn't usually happen these days. I have to tell people, it's not usually like that anymore. But my Aunt Linda, I grew up knowing that she was adopted. I knew that was part of her story. And I loved the fact that she got to be part of our family, even though she came in a different way. She was just as much part of the family, and we just loved her. So that was my introduction to adoption. And in my high school journal, I wrote, I want to become an adoption social worker. Like that's what I want to do with my life. I had this envision, like I envisioned myself becoming an adoption professional, which I've gone on to do, but I didn't ever really think about adopting children on my own. Like that wasn't ever something, because that's, most people don't think about that when they're envisioning their families. But when I was in college, a sophomore in college, I volunteered in some orphanages in Ecuador with a program called OSO. A lot of people have heard of it in my neck of the woods in Utah and Idaho and this kind of area. And I had heard about it from a friend, and they said this is a fabulous thing to go do. So I went down to Ecuador, Quito, Ecuador, for about 3 months and spent some time there volunteering in these orphanages. And my first night there was New Year's Eve, and all the rest of the volunteers went out to go to some party, and they assigned me to go to a hospital and sit with a little girl that was in the hospital, a little baby that was in the hospital, and spend the night with her. And I was like, it's my first night here. I want to go out with these people. I want to have a party with them. Like we want to go and do some fun things. But I viewed it as the short end of the stick. And so I went into this hospital and sat with this little baby girl that was in the hospital. And it was a, kind of run down hospital. It was really sad. And there was 4 babies in this room, and all of these babies had a mom sitting next to them and caring for them and whatever. And this little baby in her little crib was just laying there by herself. And I was like, oh, this is heartbreaking. And I sat there kind of like begrudgingly for the first half of the night and just kind of looked at this baby with a little bit of like, you know what, you kind of ruined my night, like I came here to, obviously this is what I came to do, but like everyone was out getting to know each other, and I was there. And then partway through the night, this little baby started crying. And so I picked her up and I rocked her and I held her. And then I just started crying with her. And I was like, this is so selfish of me to think that my life was ruined by not going out with these friends on New Year's Eve, right? And so I just thought, like, this little girl's been through everything. Like she's been through, she was about to turn 1, and I didn't know her story at that time, but she had been through way more than I had in her 1 year of life, living in an orphanage and being in and out of the hospital. She had a lot of health problems. So fast forward the story, I fell in love with this baby, and I just had this connection with her, like this undeniable connection with her that I didn't understand at the time because I wasn't a mother and I wasn't married, and I didn't have any clue of like what that actually meant or entailed. but I fell in love with her. And when I left Ecuador after 3 months, the very week, this, like, there's so many miracles in her story, but the very week that we left the country, this little girl was moved to a different orphanage. The original orphanage where I was volunteering was a Catholic run orphanage with nuns, and they were all like 85 years old. They had no way to communicate with the outside world. And she moved to a different orphanage because she had special needs. And that's part of her story. But I was devastated. I thought, like, I will never know what happens to this little girl. I don't even know where she went. But in actuality, that was the biggest blessing ever, because she happened to move to an orphanage that was run by a couple, or a woman who was from the United States. And so she spoke English, and she was young, and she knew how to use an email and like all these different things. And so I happened to get her information, and someone did a lot of digging for me and found out where this baby went. And she let me come visit one time before I left the country. So I went to go see this baby that I fell in love with. And this woman promised me that she would keep in touch with me, and she did. She sent me photos for a long time. And that was the only baby that I knew anything about when I left the country, the only one. And so I left the country thinking, like, I'm gonna go adopt this little girl someday. Like, this is my baby. I'm gonna do this. I had no idea. Like, I had no idea what that entailed. But I got married a few years later, and when I was dating my husband, I said, just so you know, like, I am a package deal. There's this baby that I fell in love with in Ecuador, and I am going for her. Again, I had no idea what that meant, but he was like, yeah, okay, we'll do that. So we got married. Fast forward a few years. The law in Ecuador states that you have to be 25 years old to start the adoption process. So that tells you how young and dumb I was. Like, I was 21 when I got married. I had no idea. We had 2 biological kids. I turned 21 or 25. We both turned 25. My husband and I are the same age, and we started the adoption process. And it was a massive uphill battle, like massive. It took months and months and months. Ecuador is a very difficult country to adopt from. And one of their things is that one of their regulations is that you are not supposed to select a specific child to adopt. And so that was a barrier for us. I knew where this little girl was. I knew what was going on with her. I had connection with her caregivers, but I wasn't supposed to select her. And they just don't do a lot of adoptions to the United States. There's lots of different, they prefer to keep their kids in country, which totally makes sense. There's lots of things that are good about that. But anyway, it was a long 18 months. It was almost 2 years, but we did finally get the go ahead, and we were matched miraculously with, I believe in miracles, with this little girl, and her name is Floor. And we went down to adopt Floor when she was 7. So that many years had passed. She turned 1 while I was volunteering in the orphanage with her. And so she turned 7 when we went down to adopt her. So that was our first adoption story. And Floor has pretty severe special needs. She has a condition called 1p36 deletion syndrome, which is a really rare chromosomal abnormality, but she functions on the level of about an 18-month to 2-year-old. And so I had this, and speaking of hard parts of adoption, I had this thought in my heart, like, I had this connection with this baby, and I will always love her. And I felt like her mom, from the very beginning. But we got home, and it was a very, very difficult adjustment process. Very difficult, because 6 years had passed since I'd seen her. I didn't know anything about her. My husband didn't know her. And she had a lot of needs. And so we had a toddler, a brand new baby, and this special needs child. And she took a lot of time and care. And so I have never sugarcoat that for people when they're trying to, or looking into older child adoption, that there's a process involved with bonding and attachment and adjustment, really. And so we went through that with her. And she, I always loved her, but it was always I felt like I was supposed to feel like her mom and like have those natural instincts towards taking care of her, but I didn't know how to take care of her. And she couldn't tell me what was going on. And she's still nonverbal, so she couldn't communicate in a way that a normal child can. And she had been in 4 different homes by the time she came to our home. So there's trauma associated with that. Even though she can't communicate it, there was definitely trauma associated with that we had to learn about and learn how to navigate and get the tools to help her. So it probably took me, in all honesty, it probably took us as a family about a year to feel like we were settled and adjusted and doing okay. but it's absolutely worth that time and effort. She is one of the brightest parts of my life. I love her so much. I can't even talk about her without getting emotional because she's such a spirit, like such a sweet spirit and such a sweet girl. And she brings so much to our family. It is honestly our privilege and blessing to have her as part of our family. Um, Flora is now 15, so she's turning 16 in January. So it's been that long. Yep. And then, so at that point, like I said, it was a little bit of an adjustment. And then 3 years passed, and I knew of another little girl in the orphanage where Flora had been. And when we went down to adopt Flora, we went to visit the orphanage where I'd spent all my time just once. We just went one day and went to visit. And while we went there, I anticipated looking at all the little faces of the kids who would have been around the age of the babies that I worked with and wondering who I would know in the orphanage. And when we went there that day, there was just one child there that I knew. And she alone had remained from all of the other kids that I had worked with. All the rest of them had either been adopted or returned to their birth families, because some of the time that would happen, or they'd find family, to take the kids. And so I saw this little girl there, and at first I was like super excited that I got to see somebody that I knew. And then I left the orphanage and the realization hit me, like, that's not exciting. That's really devastating for her. That's devastating that she has watched all of these friends leave, everyone in her peer group leave the orphanage, and she alone has remained. And so then I thought, I'm an adoption professional. By this point, I had graduated. I had started working the adoption field, and I thought, I have the tools to find this little girl a family. I'm going to do this. I'm going to make this my mission to find this little girl a family. And so 3 years passed from that point, like I said, while we were adjusting with Flora and everything. And then I had just a sudden realization and lots of different experiences that led me to know that we were her family. She was ours as well. She was supposed to come to us. And the reason I hadn't had any success in finding her a family, despite all my efforts, was that we were her family. And so it was a little like, oh no, are we going to do this again? There's so much to it. It was a beautiful experience, but not an easy one. And so my husband and I were like, okay, we better make sure that we're really solid about this. And we felt really good about it. And so we started the process again, this time with better expectations. I think expectations are huge when you're going into it, especially the type of adoption that we did, international, older child, kids from trauma, kids from hard places. You have to really understand some of that stuff. And so we went into it with a lot better preparation the second time. And we went down and adopted our daughter, Michelle is her name. And she was 11. She actually left the orphanage on her 11th birthday, which was fun for her. And she just turned 16. So we've had her 5 years. I'm terrible at math, but 5 years. And our adjustment with her was night and day compared to our other daughter. So she came home and it was just smooth from the very beginning. She's an angel child. She is so great. She has the best personality of any kid I've ever met. She's just so funny and so witty. And she's of course got her challenges too, but she's just so lovable and easy to have in our family. And we've just loved having her. So we had 2 biological kids first. Those 2 kids that we adopted in the middle, I didn't want to have any more kids because we felt like we wouldn't want Michelle, our last one, to feel like she was being replaced or anything like that with a biological child, or that she was second best. She understands things obviously a little bit better than Flora, because Flora has special needs. And so we didn't want her to feel any of that. But ironically, we got home from Ecuador and I found out I was pregnant that very same week. So we joked that our kids come in pairs. Our first biological came alone. Our second baby and Flora came within 9 months of each other. And then Michelle and our last came within 9 months of each other. So we have a young 4-year-old biological daughter as well. So 4 girls and 1 boy in our family, and they're just great. So that is the story of our adoptions.
I love it because I don't think I've interviewed anybody yet with older kids per se, that much older. And that's amazing. That happened so long ago, and now they're preteen/teenagers.
They're teenagers. So yeah, they're totally teenagers.
Yeah. So crazy. And I think that's just amazing. My one sister-in-law always wanted to, thought somebody was plugging off into it. And I just think that's amazing. And I just love it because, like you said, she's got an amazing spirit there with you, which is just so, 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 so cool. And I love how you did share that it's not easy. Like it's hard, but you've got to stick with it if it's something that you really want. So that's wonderful. Tell me, okay, now I'm going to tell them a little about like what you do.
For my work?
Yes.
So I've always had a heart for just, like I said, I've always had a heart for adoption. So I knew from an early age that I wanted to work in the adoption field, and I graduated with a bachelor's degree in social work and immediately got hired at LDS Family Services at the time, which was an agency that was a church-owned agency. And I was the very last person hired at that agency. And then they went on like a major hiring freeze. So I count that as a great blessing as well, because I had a lot of good years at LDS Family Services, 5 years or so that I worked there. And then they decided that they were no longer going to be doing adoptions. And so 3 other ladies that worked there with me and myself felt that there was a need for adoption services in the state of Utah that were not through an agency, because agencies are often super, super expensive and they're out of reach for a lot of people that are hoping to adopt. And so we help with what's called private adoptions. So we just started this little group, Utah Adoption Specialists is what it's called. And it's been a huge blessing because we get to do what we love. We get to do it on our own time. I work from home primarily. I get to meet the most incredible people, and we get to kind of just do it how we want to. And then we help our clients find a way to match with an expectant parent looking at an adoption plan independently from an agency. So they're not paying an agency thousands and thousands of dollars to match them, essentially kind of give them the tools to go about doing it on their own. And then they hire an attorney to do the legal aspects of the adoption. So the cost is significantly less than an adoption. So they're paying for exactly like the services they get. So we do both. We provide services to adopted parents, people hoping to adopt, and also expectant parents or birth parents that have placed already and need counseling. And that's one of my favorite parts of it, is doing expectant parent and birth parent counseling. I love, love, love working with birth parents because they are just incredible, incredible human beings and always have amazing stories and amazing. I learn a lot from them all the time. So
I love it. I love it. I love it so much. It makes me love you even more. And like I said, I've never met you, but seriously, like I love that. That's one of my hopes and dreams. And I haven't gone to school for anything, but I would love to find a way, whether it's like a nonprofit, and then get people like you involved with it so we can just get stuff rolling, and like people don't even have to worry about the funds. That would be my favorite thing. You don't even have to worry about the funds. Let's just get you matched up. Let's do this. And, you know, because
me too.
Yeah, because I mean, same with you. It's been such a huge blessing in my life. Like if I wasn't adopted, there's so many different things that like I'm so grateful for it. I'm so extremely grateful for it.
I really love that because there's a lot of voices out there, and I think we should listen to all the voices. You know, everyone's experience is unique and their experience is valid. But I think a lot of times the negative experiences are louder than the positive experiences. And so sometimes it's really good to hear from people that are adoptees, especially adoptees, but also birth parents that have had a positive experience, because it's encouraging for other people to know it's not all negative out there. I don't want to paint that as like a rainbow either, that everything's positive, because it's not. There's hard things with adoption, but I think when we view everything from a negative lens, it's not a good place to be all the time.
No, 100%. No, I totally agree. And that's the thing, is all the adoptees that I've interviewed, they've all just been so grateful. And I love that all the adoptive moms that I've spoken to, to me, it's a wonderful thing. And my mom did this too. It's just, they have said, you know, your mom loved you so much that they wanted you to have a better home when they came here. And that just warms my heart, that those moms, like, they were meant for adoption, to adopt those babies, because I'm like, you guys are amazing. And so every adoptee I've talked to has just nothing but love, whether like, because my parents are white, or, you know, if you're a different color or anything like that. So it's just crazy. And I interviewed one girl who's half Hawaiian, half Black, and her parents are white. Like, I just love it. Like, there's no difference in it. And that's my favorite thing about it.
I love that.
Really quick, I'll have you, because I know you got to get going. Share really quick any advice that you would have for anybody that wants to like heads up adoption or anything like that.
I think what I said before, probably just knowing that there are so many beautiful things about adoption. I love adoption so much. It's a wonderful, beautiful thing, but we can't overlook the hard parts too. And adoption stems from loss. From every person in the triad, adoption stems from loss. And so it's just acknowledging those things and knowing that they're there. And sometimes just being able to talk about it with your child who's an adoptee, or as a birth parent, or whatever it is, just acknowledging that there's pain involved too. And sometimes we can't fix that for our kids, or if we're working with a birth parent, we can't magically fix those things. But I think even just acknowledging it is a good thing. So do research, talk to people from all sides, adoptees, birth parents, adopted parents, and get perspectives. I think that's the best thing you can do. And just the more education, the better. It's good.
That's beautiful. I love that you said that adoption is like lost with everybody. Like I've never heard it said that way, because it seriously is, and I love that, because
It is.
I think people are so scared to talk to people about it, but like really, it's people aren't scared to talk about it. It's
Yeah.
You know, it's a good thing, and it's good to learn. And that's been my favorite thing about doing this, was I have learned so much from all different sides.
Yeah.
So
exactly.
It's been really good. So anything else that you would want to share?
I think that's good on the adoption front.
Perfect.
I'm so grateful for you for talking to me. It's really awesome. And so cool that we're like kind of neighbors. We'll have to just like meet together in real life.
In real life, I know for sure. So Kim, if you guys have any questions, comments, I will take her page and you guys can go there. She's an open book. As soon as like I messaged her, she was just so sweet. She's like,
I love it.
Something set up. So if you have any questions, pick her brain. She knows a lot. She's wonderful. So thank you so much for doing this. And I really, really appreciate it.
Yeah.